they found out that he had embezzled several $100,000 from the church during the previous years. And all that had come to light in the beginning of that year that they called me to be the pastor. And it was a very draining experience for the church, not just financially, for obvious reasons, but emotionally and even physically for some of the members, because they felt extremely betrayed because they'd started this church together. I mean, this group of people, a lot of them had been high school kids or college kids, or they were young adults, and he was their mentor, even though he was really about the same age as many of them. And they had grown through this process together, an exciting process of, not many young people get the chance to plant their own church, to start their own church with their own vision for what they would like to see and to do. And the young people were the ones who did the lights and the worship and the setting up everything and the inviting their friends and everything. They did everything in this church. And then to find out that the man who had been leading them through this had been taking the money that they had been giving to support the church, it was devastating to a lot of them. And they also felt a great deal of a sense of their own, we should have known better. How could we, they felt this guilt for themselves, because in a small church, for a pastor to take at least $200,000, and some people thought it was more than that, was, you thought you would notice that in a small church. When I came in, I thought, there's only upside to this church. I'm not going to go down. The worst thing that could happen is this church closes, and half the people thought it's going to close anyways. And so for me, I thought, this is a challenge, but this is a beautiful challenge, and a challenge that really, God is going to be glorified. The upside is so obvious, and the downside is so minimal, that I felt like this was not a really difficult situation at all for me. Well, the first challenge was to be able to give them hope that the church would survive. A lot of the people just did not expect the church to survive. They thought, we'd started out, we'd been on our own for 4 years. They just thought we'd go back to Thousand Oaks Church and be a part of it. That was the first and primary challenge, and that took about 6 months. But when I came in there, I had not one single doubt that church was going to survive. And so I wanted to be able to portray that to my church. We have 100 members. We've got a talented group of people. We have an awesome worship team. Why would we not survive as a church? The next challenge was to create some structure in that church. And so I basically had to be the leadership team for the first while. Fortunately, the one thing we always had was our praise music team. And so that was really the central core thing that kept us together as a church. It gave people a reason to come to the church and to stay connected, and it kept our worship alive. I immediately began to try and say, hey, we need to build Sabbath schools, and small groups. So just forming community again with people. When a pastor messes up, you contribute, or they contribute, to the loss of faith in God. On a big picture level, people don't trust that God can really change lives. Because if the pastor's life can't be changed or isn't being changed, they lose faith that God can change their life. It costs the community. The community doesn't look at the church the same way. How can they look for leadership to a group where the leader can't be trusted? And it hurts the reputation of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. If you're in that process, you need to be talking to some people, your friends particularly. If you do not have friends as a pastor, you need to have friends who you're accountable to. I have been in a small group myself for the last 14 years. Ever since I got excited about God, I have been in a weekly small group every week during those last 14 years. The groups have changed, the people have changed, but I maintain that process of community for myself. I do not think you can be a pastor and not be sharing in that kind of community. You need to have that kind of community. If some people in your life do not know what's going on in your life, you should not be a pastor. Being a pastor is about being real with God and with other people. And if you cannot be real with God and with other people, then you're not in the right business.